Coach, how are you? Sebastian Christensen, ESPN International. Jason hasn't been as impactful as usual in the fourth quarter in these finals. What is your assessment of his play in the fourth quarter, and what do you think he can tweak in order to be more efficient in those last 12 minutes tomorrow?
I would say we evaluate him on, not only scoring but how he's playing in general. And so, from a scoring standpoint, at times this whole series, not only fourth quarter, he's missed some things that he usually makes, but we do want him to be aggressive and find that balance as he's done all year. And so, with Golden State specifically, they are trying to take him out at certain times of the game. But it's on him to read that and us to put him in positions where understanding he's going to be doubled and be the bait at times and get everybody else involved, and then we have to make him pay as far as that. So I wouldn't say his fourth is not as good or as bad as some of the other quarters. I mean, he's had some stretches where he missed. Game one stands out, some open shots throughout the game, and so we want to be aggressive and make the right read, which he's done all year against all the coverages he's seen.
On your right, Mark.
Mark Murphy, Boston Herald. Ime, all of you seem to especially get caught up in relations with the referees in the last game. Do you feel you have to tamp that down a bit?
Yeah, I would say so. I think in general, just too many conversations being had at times. Feels like after foul calls or dead balls, free throws, timeouts, there's somebody talking to a ref, and so something we emphasized obviously early in the season had gotten away from quite a bit, and so something we got to spend our energy on the game and everything else going in between it other than the referees. So an area we can be better at for sure.
Gary on the right.
Gary Washington, Boston Globe. Two questions you made. One, the incident or the situation where Draymond didn't want to let Jason shoot after the whistle and came to your bench. Does Jason have to be more pissed about that? Like, that's not in his nature to be the vocal guy, but he seemed to be, he kind of downplayed it after the game. Does that kind of stuff have to drive him and upset him a little bit more? Or would you like to see that out of him, like just a pissed off Jason?
I would say that what I said after, I think game two, guys are going to be who they are and handle it however they feel best the way to handle it. And some people, like I said, get into it and some ignore it. And so to each his own as far as that. For us, it's a weird one where, someone follows your players to the bench and the referees say that's not inciting anything or instigating anything, but so whatever as far as that. And like I said, guys handle it differently, and if you use it or don't, it doesn't bother me at all.
Jay up front.
What do you think are the most important reasons that you guys have had some difficulty finishing at the rim and producing points in the paint this series?
I would say not strong finishes. Some of our drives haven't been as physical as other times, and that's the emphasis with us. I've mentioned hunting and looking for fouls instead of going up to finish. Their rotations are pretty direct every time. The guy's going to be there, so it's just about making the read. And so, credit to Green and what he did, some keeping guys off balance, faking and falling back and taking away some lobs. But for us, it's really the physicality of our finishes. I think we've been off balance, not going up the strongest, and miss. And point blank, we miss them that we usually would make. But because we know where they're going to be with their rotations, it's a mix of getting to the basket and finishing and finding your shooters or guys in the slots. And so we've seen that all series. Guys do it in a different way with shot blockers versus full team rotations. But for us, it's really about the physicality of our finishes. I think we've been off balance and not going up as strong as we need to at times.
Over here on this side.
Steve Ashburner, NBA.com. When you've got a high caliber defense trying to turn you over every possession, what are the two or three most important things that you guys need to do to keep those to a minimum?
Not over penetrate is one. One or two dribbles too many can get you in trouble. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's Jason, Jalen, Derek, Peyton. The rotations are there regardless of who goes to the basket. And so spacing is a big part of it, knowing where your outlets are at, not over penetrating. And then, the physicality that I talked about, being strong with the ball. And so those are all things we emphasize. It's pretty set they're going to be there every time. The low man's going to come across. They're going to crack back, and then a guy playing the backside. And so for us, spacing is huge, getting our guys to the spots where we know our outlets are at, and then being strong with the ball and making the right read. And so, big part of that is physicality with the ball because they are a team that reaches and has really good hands.
Again, in the second row.
Just going back to the late game unraveling in Game 5, how much do you think it was the officials getting into your guys' head, and what have you learned from that experience that might help you in Game 6 here?
I wouldn't say anything specific to do late game with the officiating. It's a physical series, and to Gary's point, I think we're complaining at times too much throughout the game. So late game may not, be any different than first, second, or third quarter. Something we need to block out and be better at overall. But the thing you can take away is we got a little stagnant again, as opposed to what got us back in the game, which was drive and kick. Had them kind of flying around in the third quarter, but a 10-0 run to start the quarter, and what got us the lead. And so from there, like I said, it could be a fatigue thing, and we'd like to get those guys a little bit more rest and have some fresh bodies coming off the bench to keep them fresh at the end of the game. And so you look at all those things as far as rotations and lineups, and the refereeing, I don't know if that impacted anything late game as much as throughout, or any different.
Front right.
Hey, man. Two questions for you. First, Rob Williams has only taken, I think, 18 attempts of shots in this series. With reads and things like that down low, he's finishing very well, obviously. Is that a situation where you guys need to look for him more down low for those spots, or are they doing a good job kind of challenging and also covering him on that spot? And then on top of that, just adjustment-wise for you going into Game 6, is it just, when you're talking with your staff right now, is it just a matter of doing what you guys do better, or are you looking potentially at tweaks, lineup changes, anything like that at this point?
Yeah, regarding Rob, I think it is a reads, and like I said, their rotations are set. They're a team that's going to come back and kind of take the big out there, but that leaves wide open kickouts there, and you've seen that in times this series. Obviously, Game 1 stands out in the fourth quarter, and the last game in the third, where they're taking away the driver, or 2 or 3 on the ball with Jalen and Jason specifically. Good job of getting into Rob. We have some cross matches on the boards, so we can get the shot up there. But the kickouts are maybe more wide open than the drop-offs in this series, because they are really good with their rotations. We're the number 1, number 2 defense in the league, and they're number 5 half court. We were number 1 this year, and so it's not a fluke when you go through a season and they're all connected like that. So they do a good job as far as that. Second question, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. We've talked about it and looked at some of the counters they're trying to make with the guys we bring in. I think small ball has worked well for us, and we obviously like to get a little more out of Peyton and Derek than we did in the last game. But Grant's been a big part of what we've done as well this year. So we know what they're trying to do as far as who they're bringing in when we substitute, and we can combat that with some lineup changes that we're looking at.
Yeah, Klay Thompson hit 4 pretty big threes in the second half. And generally, he seems to be getting more of an offensive rhythm in this series. Do you feel like it's just him hitting shots, or do you feel like you guys are losing him more than you should?
Well, we don't feel we're as good as we had been the first few games in the other areas. Obviously, Curry got a ton of the credit for the shots he was making early. Felt our physicality and some of the adjustments we made on him were better, but we don't want to lose sight of everything else we've done well, which is the off-ball actions, whether they're slips to the basket or Thompson. You saw our first 2 or 3 possessions. They had slips for layups to the basket. So something we had taken care of well throughout the series, as well as getting to Thompson. I think we lost the rope a little bit there. And for them to have 50 points in the paint is too many, and a lot of non-penetration points. It's off those slips and cuts to the basket. And so as much as we want to focus on Curry, we still have to do those things well. And all that being said, they scored 104, and so if we clean up a few of those mistakes, especially early on at the start of the game, we'd be in much better shape.
Joe?
Ime, a little bit more on the potential lineup changes. I asked you the other day about the Otto Porter move with Looney, and you explained pretty well why you thought the Warriors might do that. So with that same explanation, do you now need to consider moving, I guess, Robert, just so he can be out there when Looney's out there?
Yeah, we've even in going back to the last series, coming off the injury, we've run them shorter stints, and so we take him out pretty early in the game anyway, and we can come back and match him with Looney, no problem. I think obviously the spacing, they wanted to have him guarding somebody more space oriented. And for us, other than last game, we really hadn't got off to a poor start. So no matter what they did lineup wise, we were good to start the game for the most part in the first 4 games. And so as far as that, we're rotating Rob out pretty quick to get him back in anyway. So that's not something we're looking at as far as changing the starting lineup. It's more so who we want coming in for who with the second unit.
The last two in the back corners. Adam first.
Yeah, you guys obviously been in some tough spots during regular season, some tough spots in these playoffs. What's your source of optimism right now, and what kind of things do you say or do with your team to make sure that they share it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the big picture, and we're defending well enough to win. That's really some stagnant lulls offensively that really hurt us. And we'll have a quarter or 2 or 3 of really good basketball, and then have that quarter or 2 that really hurt us. And then that was fourth quarter a few games ago, and even last game, once we got the lead and what we did well, and just for the first 9-10 minutes of the third quarter, we had a little bit of slippage at the end there that allowed them to get back into it. But for us, we really want to focus on the offensive end because I think we've guarded well enough to win. If we talked about game 4, if we finish the game off well, not that 5-minute stint, we'd be in good shape. And so that's our optimism. We've fought off 3 elimination games and won some game 7s, but you can't just rely on that we've been there. You got to do things well to start the game, not put ourselves behind the 8 ball like we did last game. And so as confident as we are in the situations we've been in, we understand Golden State's a high IQ, well-coached team that's not going to beat themselves. You have to go out there and take it. And so for us, confident as always because we've been through it, but we can help ourselves and play better offense overall and not aid them with the turnovers and all the same little things we've talked about throughout the series.
Last one, back right.
Hey, Ime. Nick Coy from ABC6 in Providence. When you built your coaching staff this year, Joe Mazzulla obviously was a holdover from Brad's staff. When you added him to your staff, why did you feel he was going to be an asset to your staff, and how have you seen him grow as a coach as the season and the postseason has gone along?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to everybody in the organization when I got hired, players included, and he got glowing reviews. I didn't know much about him going into it, but I take the players' opinions at high value, and he was a guy that was a consensus yes, somebody that they all worked with closely, believed in, and understood his upside. And so once I met with him and Tony Dobbins and Evan Brads and some of the guys we kept, I think it was pretty easy conversations to see why. And so as all young guys, he coached summer league and kind of held everything together while I was gone to Tokyo. And so the value and the relationship aspect, which was a big part of my coaching staff, he carried over well. And so it's easy to see why once I got to know him and be around him. But what I've encouraged our guys to do is be more vocal, be more out there and get their own voice in the same way I was kind of brought up in San Antonio. And so I think all guys have done that throughout the year. We've all learned each other for the guys I didn't know as well. And obviously with the Miami series and that being his scout, you've seen him grow throughout the season. And now he's in the mix for some things and hopefully it goes well.